Best Western hotels and resorts. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George got a hero's welcome yesterday. This journey back to Los Angeles was a long time coming.
Growing up young, around 8 years old, grew a love for the sport. My goal was to get to the NBA.
And finally, Kawhi Leonard from Moreno Valley, California.
Bringing this defense to its knees.
I'm trying to go in and be my own player, trying to make a name for myself.
For myself, growing up in Palmdale, I knew I loved the game. I didn't know how far it was going to take me.
Paul George nails it. George elevates and detonates. Paul George, superstar in the making. Paul George, sheer force and dominance.
Me and Kawhi are pretty close.
Those two players, along with a roster that is deep. They are talented.
Deep and stacked with new stars.
You know, we both Southern Cal guys.
Kawhi is a closer.
What a shot from Kawhi Leonard.
Paul George is a closer.
George over Gobert. It's gone.
We both wanted to play for the city.
The Los Angeles Clippers. This is something special, y'all.
All right, well, I just became a Clippers fan. I'm a sucker. They could have been selling anything at that point with that music, and I would have bought it.
Videos do.
That was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And they show their high schools. I mentioned earlier, Kawhi did an interview with Chris Haynes yesterday where he talked about why home was important. He's got nieces and nephews. He talks about that. He hasn't been able to kind of be a part of their lives on a day-to-day basis. You got to be happy for both these guys, man. They've handled their careers super professionally. Both been honest about the fact that eventually wanting to get back to L.A. Both found their way back to L.A. on a legitimate contender.
Yeah, played against each other in college. Been knowing about each other since high school. They played like a doubleheader. One was playing. They start watching each other on the other side. So great look. Nothing like seeing athletes when they were younger. Like, it's just great to be able to look back and be like, ah, man.
We're going to have to show the audience that picture of you playing basketball at some point when you were a little guy. Playing basketball?
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Picture? Okay, well. Oh, you're getting it now? I just thought, man, at some point. Speaking of athletes when they were little.
I'm going to tweet it out. It's Throwback Thursday.
Those some long legs.
Oh, yeah. I think
sticking with the
I had
Clippers.
34 dunks that year. First team All-State, 16 All-American.
Just saying, Sarah. He's just saying.
26 a game.
The new era that officially began yesterday. A franchise.
Division I offers.
He's got a lot on that resume. Franchise that has never sniffed supremacy in Los Angeles is now the favorite to win it all, which is why, without a doubt, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard know they both made the right decision.
For me, it was a chance to come back home and to be a part of something that was already special. I'm not a guy that come in with an ego, with you know, that I'm the man. Like, I want to be a part of something special. I want to help build something special. And, you know, this is surreal to be home and do it for a team that I grew up and wanted to be a part of ever since they missed out on me in the draft, but that's another story.
With Doc being a championship head coach, you know, that's something that I wanted, experienced coach. And the front office is, you know, very transparent with me. You know, they want to win. I want to win again. And it's an opportunity for us to just build our own, you know what I mean, to make history. They haven't been to a finals. They haven't won a finals. So, you know, that was something big and exciting for me to, you know, make my decision.
Sarah, we've spent this whole season talking about, especially the postseason, how good Kawhi Leonard. We haven't spent that much time talking about Paul George. And now suddenly you fit these two together and people are talking about this tandem as potentially the best in the league. How do these two fit together on the court?
Before we entirely get into their skill set on the court, I want to go back to see something you said earlier in the show about their personalities. And when you watch them up there during the press conference, you can tell the type of closeness and relationship that they already have. And for as much as we have been talking about Kawhi Leonard and being someone with a very tight circle and a private individual, he seemed comfortable. He seemed happy. He seemed at peace with where he's at. And so I believe with these two, just the attitude that they will bring. And I think, you know, no one gets to the NBA. No one is a professional athlete if they don't have an extraordinary work ethic. I think there's different levels of it. However, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have the same mindset of what it takes to be excellent on the floor, and that starts with both ends of the floor. I think they fit so well together because they're guys that they could play with the ball in their hands, they could play off the ball, they don't need the basketball. The Clippers are one of the favorites as we head into the season because of the depth of the roster, some of the other pieces they have. So I think it's not just about how these two fit together, but how well they will fit with many of the other players around them. But they've got a versatility to their game, which is what I think really separates some of the players, the elite players, because of the different places that they can play on the floor. And I think both of them, too, for as much as we can talk about their own individual skill sets brought up in that press conference, being so excited to play for Doc Rivers. And I think that's another factor, that the amount of reverence and respect they have for him, for what he's going to bring to the table, for how he's going to put them in the best positions possible, will continue to help make their games grow, because they are both, you know, we talked about Kawhi, could be the greatest player in basketball right now. Paul George, maybe that tier right behind, but I think they still feel like they have a lot of room to grow and room that they can grow together.
Yeah, we are in the era of duos in the league. Nick has a nice list of the duos that we're going to be talking about. All of them need help, but Kawhi was very, very comfortable. And Paul George said him and Kawhi were good friends. Yeah. Now, I know Kawhi. I know the team around Kawhi, but I can't even say that Kawhi and I are friends. I get a lot of messages and everything from the group, but I can't even say that. So that right there spoke to the amount of communication, and he's in that inner circle with Kawhi, that there's only a handful of NBA players that Kawhi would tell you in his Rolodex as far as people that he's communicating with. And when you start off that way with humble beginnings, neither one of them a 4-star recruit, 3-star recruits, one going to Fresno, one going to San Diego State, coming up middle first-round draft picks. Paul George was terrified. They drafted Kawhi, the Pacers, the year after him. He's like, man, I'm a guard. I'm an off guard. Why are they drafting this guy? End up trading him. And then when Paul George requested a trade, that's the first time Kawhi went to San Antonio and asked San Antonio to trade for him. He wanted to be his teammate, and they weren't able to come up with the package. Kawhi explained that yesterday. So they've been building this relationship, and then the 23rd hour, when it became where either he's going to sign with the Lakers or either try to go back to Toronto, who they couldn't make a deal. Doc Rivers, Lawrence, and their front office, they made the deal to be able to bring this relationship together, which they thought it was destiny. That's what they talked about in yesterday's interview.
So the reason these two guys fit best together, so well together, is because of all the things you guys are mentioning off the court, personality-wise. They're both coming off their best individual statistical seasons. Kawhi obviously ending in a championship. Paul George third in the MVP voting. And because stylistically, who's a player Kawhi doesn't fit with? There's nobody. No. Who's a player Paul George doesn't fit with? Nobody. It's hard to, guys that play both ways can play in a pinch the 2, certainly the 3, certainly the 4. They're positionally malleable. They are low maintenance. They don't have to have the ball in their hands. Those are the guys that are plug and play in almost any system. It's one of the reasons we've said Kevin Durant can fit anywhere. Like, you want to play an ISO-heavy system, a ball movement system, any offense, and he's going to help you defensively, not to the level these two guys are, even though he probably could at least get the level Paul George is. Those guys always fit. There are, to me, 2 question marks. If the Clippers don't win the title, or there could be a lot of reasons they don't win the title, if they have a disappointing season compared to the expectations, it will be, we will look back, because I think Kawhi's a known quantity, assuming he's healthy, about Paul George and what people are not bringing up now because there's so much glow about it, which is Paul George's playoff runs last 5 years have been less than inspiring. Hasn't been out of the first round since he had that 5 years ago, since before he broke his leg, duel with LeBron with the Pacers in back-to-back years in the playoffs. In 2017, he swept in Indiana, shoots 39% in the playoffs. In 2018, they lose to Utah in 6 games with Russ, and in that game 6, he was 2 of 16, if you guys remember that closeout game. So Paul George individually, a lack of success in the postseason. And you mentioned Doc Rivers, who is as respected amongst players as any coach in basketball. But Doc also has had a lot of talent come through his teams in the years. He had Tracy McGrady when Tracy McGrady was a league MVP candidate. and couldn't get out of the first round. He did that amazing run in Boston. Then I would argue the Clippers, whether it's on Doc, we put it on Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, but Doc was the steward of that ship that 4 straight years won 50-plus games and 4 straight years went second round, first round. So I think Doc's a great coach, but if things don't go well for the Clippers, I think people will be looking to him because people are so high on the roster and so high on how these two guys will fit together.
That's why that Clippers team that Doc was, and when we bring up CP3 and Blake and DeAndre, I think you factor in personalities and character fit. And I think that's different than what you're seeing out of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I also, to me, another X factor you bring in with this Clippers team, for as much as we go down the roster, Lou Williams. You've got one of the best closers in the game. And, of course, he's a sixth man and coming off the bench. But I think some of that pressure that Paul George may feel, it's a shared responsibility between a lot of these players who have been in huge moments.
Yeah, I can go down through every duo and I can break down whoever that second part of the duo, either lack of playoff experience, lack of playoff success,
totally true.
Every one of them, I could break them down,
totally
break them down.
All right, don't break yet. We're just going to take a commercial break, and then you can do that part afterwards. Sarah, thanks so much for hanging out today.
Appreciate it.
Coming up, what beef does Steve Kerr have with Anthony Davis? We'll tell you next on First Things First. Steve's going to tweet something out.
All his stats.
No, look.
What?
Word club.
Malleable.
Tonsorial?
Yeah, that's my new word for the day.
What's
After you drop that one, I'm still working on it.